I am Rafa Benitez. You are watching the Redmen TV.
Hello, welcome to the Redmen TV. It's the Uncensored match build-up show. Liverpool taking on Bournemouth, first home game of the season. I'm joined by Chris Pajak, Liverpool legend David Fairclough, and Jack Hart as well, which sounds really underwhelming, Jack. After that, I'm really sorry. It's the other way around. I'm Redmen legend Jack Hart.
I'm off.
Yeah. Chris, football back at Anfield. It was great seeing the Reds back in action last week away from home, but back at Anfield, it's where we want to be.
Of course it is. I mean, Monday night game, first game of the season as well for us at home, of course. Now, that's exciting. I like the Monday night games as long as they're not against West Ham. I really hate those Monday night drab 0-0s against West Ham. Bournemouth, their away fans, it's a tough old drive, isn't it, to get up here after. I feel for their away fans a little bit.
That's not. There's no great deal of thought gone into the planning there. I don't think they've gone like, Liverpool. Well, people will be interested in watching that. There's probably like 2,000 Bournemouth fans who are probably going,
I've got to take 2 days off work.
I'm sorry, love. I'm just not going to be back. The B&Bs are going to be very full on Monday night. I mean, it's very simply, football's great. It's great to see us back in general, but this is the real test. Back at Anfield, the season really begins from here.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, sometimes you'd like to start the first game at home and really start with a bang. Yeah. But we've got a great result at Stoke, so we go into our first home game, I think, on a high. And I think that will show in the atmosphere, or at least I hope it shows in the atmosphere, that the Liverpool fans sort of get that little bit of a roll going and create Anfield as a very difficult place to visit again this season. Gives us a good opportunity, not wishing to denigrate sort of Bournemouth, but I mean it gives us a fantastic opportunity of 3 points.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it'd be remiss of us really, wouldn't it, Jack, to say anything other than Liverpool have to, we have an expectation of 3 points in that game, and we've already said, we did the final word show talking about Stoke, that there are much on paper tougher fixtures to come in the next month, 2 months. This, we're looking at this game. Bournemouth, to some extent, not necessarily Bournemouth, but what Bournemouth are, newly promoted team, coming to Anfield on the back of our first win of the season. It's exactly the type of team you want to be playing.
Yeah, I think the warning is that it doesn't get, so far it's not been bigger than this for Bournemouth, so this is massive. They'll really want to put on a performance in front of the Kop, in front of the Liverpool supporters, in front of their own supporters who they're aware have travelled all that way, in difficult circumstances in terms of the timing of the game. So they'll be keen to put on a show. I just hope that sort of naivety, and I sort of expect that naivety should play into our hands a little bit, really. I think they'll try and play some football and try and look like the team they've been on the way up the leagues in the last few seasons, and we should be able to sort of capitalise on that. I hope it just doesn't become too open that there's an exchange of goals. We had 2 years ago the game with Swansea early on in the season, which was a tough one, the John Joe Shelby game, and we ended up not taking all the points from that because we just got involved in a bit of an untidy game where everything was quite impulsive.
Yeah,
there was no control. Yeah, we need to make sure we've got that.
It's. I just think it's perfect, Chris. Because I think there's probably some people who are looking at it and thinking, "Oh yeah, we'll smash them." I don't think that's the case at all. I think what Jack says is right. They're going to come, and exactly that. This will be the biggest game in a lot of their careers to this point. They're on the big stage. They're coming to Anfield. They're playing against Liverpool. Everyone knows we're going to be
Monday Night Football.
We're going to be there or thereabouts. Hopefully, come the end of the season, they're going to go and they're going to give it absolutely everything. It's a real test, but it's a test of what this new approach, I guess, that Brendan Rodgers wants from Liverpool. We want to see far more steel, far more grit, and it's perfect opportunity for us to go and match Bournemouth and then let our superior ability shine to do at the top.
It is. I think it's a really tough game. I think going back to last weekend's fixtures, of course, Everton, Watford. I think Everton really thought they were going to roll over Watford. They've been heavily predicted to go down again. And they had a tough game. Now, for me, this is a game that we should be winning, but it's not one that we can go in and take lightly. Either way, I think as much as you said, match them and then let our superior quality shine. I think that's what we've got to do. I'd like to see a little bit more of Firmino. I don't think he'll be ready to start again, but I definitely think 20, 30 minutes, maybe even 40.
Yeah.
For Firmino, but go out there and get the fans on their side. What David said's right. If we can make Anfield a fortress again, and the fans from the first game of the season are singing loud and giving their all, that could set the tone for the fans for the rest of the season. Because Anfield for the last 2 years hasn't been good enough. By the end of the 13-14 season.
The good season.
The good season. But, last season it was really down, and this season we need to set the tempo higher, and the players are going to be the ones to make the fans do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's vital just to keep to build on the positivity, really, isn't it, David? We've said that Liverpool's positivity, and it's a natural thing. If you're a Scouser, I think it's kind of genetic, isn't it, to some extent? But I think we have been beaten down a lot. Not just over the last couple of years, but over the last 25 years to some extent. And there was a lot of pressure going into this season. It relieved a fair chunk of it getting that opening day win, but they need to just keep it going.
Yeah, you need momentum. That's what everyone's looking forward to, I'm sure Liverpool won't take Bournemouth lightly. They had a tricky cup game against them in the last year or so, and so I think they're aware of the style that they play, their attitude, and one thing or another. So they'll come to Anfield and make it difficult, I'm sure. But it's not games against Liverpool that are going to save Bournemouth ultimately.
Yeah.
So Liverpool have to be sort of up for it. If they start well, then our superior quality should tell through.
Yeah, well, there's a lot made. Liverpool have got these are the teams that Liverpool have got a foot to the sword, Jack. You don't go into a season looking at where your points are going to come and go, Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, they're in the bag. No problem, lads. We'll worry about the other games when we come to them. No, you come up against, there's 15, probably slightly less than that. You're talking about your 12 teams in the league that you should be beating home and away. And that's where your basis for success comes from, and that's what we were so good at with Suarez, was just getting those teams, battering these teams. I'm not saying we're going to go out and batter Bournemouth, but at the very least, they're the teams you have to go and get your solid basis of points from.
I think it's easy to look at the table and see 10, 12 teams like that, but you've got to be aware of the different styles in there. We should be beating Bournemouth and we should be beating Stoke, but they're two very different propositions. And the thing we've struggled with in the past is actually breaking the teams who are going to sit back down. We've tended to be okay against the likes of Swansea, Norwich a couple of times have tried to play football against us, and we've been okay against those. So
those Norwich fans are so happy Suarez isn't in the Premier League anymore.
So the hope is that Bournemouth should be the kind of team that we're well equipped to deal with, because I don't see that they will sit back. What I don't want to see is for us to completely release the shackles and just go at them, because I don't see the point. Even if that gets us a 3-0 home win, fantastic, but I don't think that helps us in terms of setting up for the next few games. I think we need to maintain a style and know what we're doing rather than be switching from game to game.
It's a really interesting point.
I was going to feeding off that. I was going to ask the question: I think it's all well and good playing one particular style away from home and being compact and hard to beat, but against these teams, you need your best players, your magic producing players on the pitch. Is there a case that Liverpool do just say, great, well, we have a home style in this one. We put Firmino in. We get as many of our absolute most talented players on the pitch as possible, just to try and create those individual moments.
For me, no, I think we.
Firmino.
No, for me, that's brilliant. For me, no. So honestly, I think what Jack's alluding to, I think we've got a game plan for the next 6 games, let's say, and we don't want to be chopping and changing too early on. The team did well. We had a solid base against Stoke, and we managed to get 3 points. I think the idea is put the same team out there. Let's see if we can get a relatively comfortable victory, but with the idea that they're going to be the same team that are going to come into form against the likes of Arsenal and Man United when we're playing them. I wouldn't be changing it too much. I'd maybe see, 30 minutes is probably the most that Firmino would get if I was playing.
Yeah, I think probably right. I think I'd start with the same side, but I do think the the influence will be slightly different, I think, on a different approach. It won't be as guarded, obviously. The way we started against Stoke, I think we've got to put teams on the back foot, got to unnerve them at Anfield. But there's enough quality in that sort of in that 11 to upset any team.
You could keep that 11. You could keep that 11, but actually just switch the system and make it a more positive approach, couldn't you? You could just leave Milner in to do the anchoring, or just Henderson and push one further forward. I guess is an option.
Yeah, I think so. I think no reason to. I think teams will come with a slightly different style. So in this day and age, I think you can't afford to sort of just be, you want sort of have your own system and stick to it. Unfortunately, nature, football being what it is, I think you've got to adapt yourself to counteract the opposition a little bit. So I think we'll be slightly different. I'll be honest. I
think this is a big game for Lallana for me.
Yeah,
this is the type of game that I see him sort of really stepping up in.
Well, honestly, if he can't be amazing against Bournemouth, there's going to start to be questions of how does he justify his place in the team when you've got Firmino waiting in the wings. Markovic is miles out of the equation at the moment, but he did. I think that was the Bournemouth game, wasn't it, in the last season where Markovic had a very good. I think that was one of the first ones we played at the back, wasn't it? He played left wing back, and he had a good game in that. So there's going to be plenty of players. Lallana, I really like Lallana. I think he's a terrific talent, but he needs to start delivering, and I think that you're right. I think that could be a big game for him in that regard.
Yeah, I think Lallana is a little bit under threat. I think because whether or not he'll be grateful for being in the team, but I don't think that's his favourite position left, and it's difficult for him. I think because he goes wandering a little bit, and we saw it yesterday when the first change was made. Then he was the one that ultimately becomes vulnerable, and I think so. He has to show that he can't be left out. He has to produce magic. He has to score goals. He's a great footballer, but he's vulnerable.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because you're right. I was looking at that Stoke game, Jack, and you're thinking, Coutinho's Coutinho. He's your best player. You're going to want, as Brendan even said himself, you're going to want to keep him on for as many minutes as possible. Jordan Ibe is a 19-year-old kid, but he's a natural winger. He's got that pace. It's not a straight swap in those cases. Lallana was always the most obvious candidate, I guess, to be substituted.
I think everybody would agree with that. I think everybody watching that match or at the game themselves would have been thinking Lallana's the man for the first change, really. I like him an awful lot. I think he does give us a lot, but he kind of threatened to add a few goals last season, but it never quite came, and I think that's the next level he needs to find with us, really, because he gave that to Southampton and he looked like one of the best players in his position in the league, and we need to see a little bit more of that. He needs to be... We signed him and he felt like he was a plug-in and play. He'll fit in and he will deliver, but he's got to find that next level now. He's got that move. He can't just be happy to be here.
Oh yeah, I'm confident that he's got it. You know what I mean? But sometimes it is just that difference between showing everything and just sometimes you need that slice of luck, don't you? Just stick the ball in the back of the net and you might start the ball rolling and you might find that he has a little purple patch and he scores 3 or 4 in 5 or 6 games or something, and that's the exact kind of return we're looking for from him. But absolutely, when Firmino's there, all of us are looking at it going, who's he coming in for? It's
that's Lallana at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit briefly more about Bournemouth, but obviously we've got David here. He's not just come in for the offer of a cup of tea, which he politely declined, which is a first for one of our guests.
I've heard about the tea.
Did your man tell you?
You've got your new books coming out, of course. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, a long time, yeah. It's one of those things that I probably had an ambition to do it at one stage, and I thought I would have done it in a different way. And as time passes by, you tend to think, no, it won't happen. I'll not get the opportunity, and who would be interested?
Isn't that what you were told by your wife at the time?
I was actually, yeah.
Going to be interested.
Said, nobody's interested anyway. So that did sort of rock my confidence a while ago. It was difficult for her, really, because as one of our friends said, said, Jan, you've lived the life, so you think your life's, it's ordinary and of no interest. So she was the worst critic, but it did shatter my confidence. It did shatter my confidence. She was always my best. She was always my best critic, and I suppose it took a long while for people to actually convince me to do it really, and have the right people.
She's done this with Mark Platt,
yeah,
as well as obviously got a number of quality Liverpool books under his belt. So was it him who convinced you that the time was right, or did you go to him?
Well, I've known Mark a long time, and he's a good mate anyway. But just talking through the project, and I had one or two ideas, and I'd spoken to people before, and I'd mentioned it to him that I had it still in my head a little bit. I wouldn't, the thing wouldn't go away. And he mentioned it to his friends in a publishing house, and they liked the idea. So we thought, well, we'll do it together.
Okay, well, I mean, it's crazy to me, considering that you look at how many footballers, current ex-footballers who've achieved nothing in their careers. You know what I mean? Ashley Cole put a book out between, for what had he done? He done essentially nothing in his career.
No, so Cole.
But yeah, actually, there we go. I'm really sorry. There's none of that, unfortunately, in your book. But on the flip side, actually being successful in your football career, the guy who got 3 European Cups, 6 league titles, UEFA Cup, League Cups, Charity Shields galore. When you consider the paucity of content in a lot of modern football's books, it seems crazy that you've not done this before.
Yeah, in some ways, I think initially I'd have done it when I wanted to. I'd have written it more as experiences of going abroad and how perhaps it could help people rather than be informative rather than sort of just your experiences at Liverpool, which have been well sort of documented by lots of the players. Yeah. So and I think that's maybe an interesting part of mine is that it hasn't been just like any old story. It hasn't all been up, unfortunately. Yeah. There's been some nice ups and downs, and I think it creates a little bit of a slightly different story. And down the years, I've been asked about different experiences and why this didn't happen or why did that happen. My relationship with Bob Paisley and things like that. And I don't think I've ever really fully explained what was going on and. We know Liverpool fans want to know sort of the stories behind some of the old successes. Yeah. So it's a different version that maybe people would not have heard of before.
Yeah, I think that's the most fascinating side of it. I guess is that there's a real temptation to look at the glory years of Liverpool, and you were there for that. You know what I mean? That period. I mean. I had to remind myself of it, that period between like 75 and 81 was just, we won everything, you know what I mean? It was just something else, but there's a temptation for people to look back at it with rose-tinted spectacles and look at just all the glory. It's quite interesting to see like the experience of being in there and not being, and the battles you had to face to get yourself into the side and the low points of it as well. It's not just let's look back and smile with loads of great nostalgia in it all.
Yeah, I mean, down the years, one or two people have sort of said, wasn't it great to be sort of the 12th best player in the world, and you know what I mean, that type of thing. But I wanted to be in the team. Yeah. I mean, it was a great team. I wasn't always substitute, but it was difficult to break in, and the relationship thing is maybe of interest to how it happened, why I stuck with it, my battles at certain periods. One thing that I did do down the years, I kept diaries. I always sort of used to diarise everything, and as you said before, sometimes there's a tendency to look back and say, oh, it was all fantastic, it was all great. I mean, you look back at a diary, particularly say of 77 or 78, and you see how that went up and down and various periods in that year where everything was so great, and then all of a sudden you get this down and you wonder why it happened. And some of the conversations that have been in those periods sort of bring it all back to you. So it kind of makes it all you know, I don't know, kind of interesting. I've bought into the idea. Somebody, you know, the publishers liked the story, and I kind of thought, well, it isn't a bad story after all.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you've got a notion of the different, the different sides of it. You can probably read like maybe Kelly's experience or something, or Kevin Keegan's, and they're probably going, "Oh, this was the game where I did whatever," and you're like, "This is the game where Ronnie Moran made me put the ball and carry the ball out from the end of the game." You know what I mean? And I think it's again fascinating to have that kind of other perspective on things, and a far more honest, I guess, assessment in some respects.
Well, I think we all had our experiences. We've all had our, you know, the old song, you know, players only love you when they're playing, you know. So there's a downside, you know. Not everybody can play week in, week out. So you know, it's easy sometimes. Kenny says everything glowingly. Talks, everything's great, everything's wonderful. One thing, because it panned out. He's playing week in, week out.
Yeah.
But it isn't all like that for other people. And I think that there's a little bit of mystique about what was going on behind the scenes. You know, so it's something that I've been happy to unveil, and the experiences abroad was sometimes sort of amusing, and you think, how do I get myself into this situation type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, you wish it had been hitch free, but it wasn't. I had some sort of interesting little times, and it is what it is. It's my story, and it did sort of it was over a long period, so yeah, it's worth putting it.
Yeah, so there you go. No Cheryl Cole, but boss stories of the ups and downs of being involved in one of the greatest football teams of all time. David and I are going to be doing another video where we're going to have a little game. We're going to be David. I think he's undersold his abilities in pool.
I think he's shocked, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to find out how that goes down shortly, but you check that out later this week. But getting back to the game, because I thought Eddie Howe's boys were unlucky against Aston Villa at the weekend. You know, they were at home, they came up all the positivity, and you know, Rudy Gested's done them.
Championship forward.
The championship forward come up and done. But they'll be, you know, they'll want to put that right. It's going to add, as if any extra impetus was needed. That's definitely going to add.
Yeah, as I said earlier on in the show, they're going to be up for this game, you know, and maybe they'd have been looking at the Villa game at home, first game in front of their fans in the Premier League, or everything that ties into their ground being a small ground and absolutely rocking for it. And they didn't do enough, I don't think, for the fans, and with the travel that they're going to be making their fans, this is points that they're luxury points to them.
Yeah.
They'll just go out and see if they can get 3 points, because why not? They're not expected to get 3 points. The lights of Sky Sports are on them on Monday night. That'll do something for those players.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough game for Liverpool.
Absolutely. So let's have some score predictions, please. And before I do, I realised that we did that whole chat. I didn't even mention the name of the book. Just to make sure I got it right. Super Sub, the story of football's most famous, number 12. So there you go. Do go and check that book out. Jack, score predictions?
Liverpool 2, Bournemouth 0.
Okay, David?
I was going exactly the same, actually. 2-0, read my mind.
Chris?
I think it's going to be 1-0 again.
Yeah, I know. I've got a real feel that we're hoping this is going to be like, season's going to kick off big time now, newly promoted team, and it'll take like another worldie or a penalty or something.
I'm 1 for 1 this season on score predictions.
There you go. There you go.
That's the best record I've ever had on this show going into a season.
Great. Do let us know your score predictions there in the comment section. Who would you start? Would you make any changes from the opening day win over Stoke? Don't forget to check out the rest of the content, the aforementioned pool game, which promises to be great. We've also done a final word, so looking back at last week's game in far more depth and detail, which was great. 2 of the exclusive subscriber shows. Chris and I are going to be looking at how Liverpool might line up and the potentials for the formation, how it changes from Stoke potentially to Bournemouth and beyond as well. Again, it's Boss. We'll annotate that at the end of the video so you can check it out. Give the video a thumbs up as always. Always, again, thoughts in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. Dave, thanks very much for joining us. Jack, thank you very much for joining us as well.
Been a pleasure.
You're special to us as well. Don't worry. Yeah, and good night. Ta-ra.
And the more people go forward, the likes, you know, yesterday we supported the front, you know, the attackers a little bit better as the game wore on, and we saw in pre-season games how much more Klein will help as well. The more forward he gets, the more space it will open up for Ivan. It wasn't in the first half.